Late autumn settles over the countryside like a soft wool cloak that does not quite fit, letting a little chill slip in at the edges. In a Roman villa of the 2nd century, stone and timber hold the memory of warmer days. But the evenings arrive earlier now, and the air carries dampness from fields that have been harvested and left to rest. Inside, life becomes quieter and closer to the hearth, closer to lamplight, closer to the small habits that make night feel safe. It is not a story of grand events. It is only a slow account of how a household meets the cool, damp stone, patiently, gently, one small ritual at a time. Evening does not rush in a Roman villa. It comes in a slow, steady way, as if the day is quietly folding itself away. The light outside grows softer, then thinner, and then it begins to slip behind the low hills and the bare branches of late autumn. The air changes first. You notice it before anyone speaks of it. It is a little cooler, a little heavier, and it carries a clean, damp smell, earth, fallen leaves, and stone that has been shaded for hours. Inside the villa, the rooms do not suddenly become cold. They simply begin to feel less generous. The stone walls and floors have held the day's warmth in a careful, stubborn way, but now they begin to give it back very slowly, as if they are reluctant to let it go. You walk along a corridor and your sandals make a quiet sound on the flagstones. It is a familiar sound, a calm sound, one that belongs to a home that has known many evenings like this. In the courtyard, someone has already started to put things away. You see a servant, his tunic plain, his belt simple, lifting a basket that had been left out to catch the last sun. He moves without hurry, because hurry does not help at this hour. It only makes hands clumsy. He carries the basket toward the storeroom, and the wicker creaks softly. A second servant follows, gathering small tools that were used in the garden. A wooden handle darkened by use, a small iron blade dulled by soil. Nothing is dramatic. Nothing is urgent. The villa is simply settling into the shape of night. You pause near a doorway and feel the draft that slips in at the edges. Late autumn is like that. Even when the day was mild, evening brings thin fingers of cool air that find every gap. The doorway smells faintly of outside, damp wool, wind, and the last dry scent of crushed grape leaves. You watch someone pull a heavier cloth curtain across the opening. The fabric is thick, woven tightly, and it dulls the sound of the courtyard. When the curtain falls into place, the air inside feels calmer, as if it can rest. Further in, the kitchen area is waking into its own evening rhythm. You hear pottery shifting, a lid being set down, a bowl placed carefully on a table. The table is wood, worn and smooth in the places where hands have rested for years. The air here holds familiar scents. A little smoke from earlier cooking, a trace of herbs stored in clay jars, and the warm, quiet smell of bread that is waiting to be eaten. A woman who manages the kitchen moves between shelves and hearth with the steady pace of someone who knows every corner. Her hair is bound up, not for beauty, but for practical calm. She checks a jar of salted olives, touches the rim of a pitcher, and then looks toward the hearth space as if listening to what it needs. You can tell, even before the fire is made bright again, that the hearth is the center of the evening. It is the place the household will gather, because the villa is wide and stone holds cold the way it holds memory. Outside, the last birds settle. Inside, voices become softer, not silent, never entirely silent, but gentler, as if everyone is taking care not to disturb the quiet that arrives with darkness. Someone speaks in a low tone, asking where the lamp oil was placed. Someone answers just as softly. You can hear the small, ordinary sounds. A cloth being shaken out, water being poured into a basin, a broom brushing crumbs toward a corner. You walk slowly along the corridor again, and you notice how the shadows have changed. In daylight, the villa feels open and clear. Now, with the sun nearly gone, each doorway becomes a darker rectangle. Each niche in the wall becomes a deeper pocket. Even the painted plaster, faded reds and ochres, simple patterns, looks different, as if the colors are now sitting further back beneath the surface. A servant passes you carrying a small oil lamp. The lamp is clay, its surface slightly rough, darkened at the spout. A thin flame trembles at the wick. It is not a strong light. It is only enough to soften the corners, enough to show the path without turning night back into day. The servant cups one hand around the flame as he walks, protecting it from drafts. You notice how carefully he holds it, because in a stone house, the air can move unexpectedly, and the flame is small and easily bothered. In a side room, you see a pile of wool blankets folded neatly. The wool is thick, heavy, and it smells faintly of lanolin and clean smoke. Someone has shaken them earlier, and now they sit ready for later, when the sleeping places are prepared. You touch one for a moment, just with your fingertips, and you feel the weight that will matter in the night. Wool is a kind of promise. It does not need to be beautiful. It only needs to do its work. You pass a window opening where a wooden shutter is half closed. Through the gap you can see the sky changing. The last strip of pale light near the horizon is fading, and above it the blue deepens. The air outside is still, or perhaps it only seems still because the villa walls block most of the wind. You listen and hear a small sound, leaves brushing against a wall, a faint tap of twig on stone. Nothing threatening. Someone begins to gather the household nearer the warmer rooms. It is done by small signals. A lamp being brought to the main room, a bench being pulled closer to the hearth, a basket of kindling appearing near the fire space. People drift inward the way water drifts toward a low place. You follow because your body understands the same logic. Warmth will be there. Work will become quieter there. When you enter the main room, you notice that the stone floor looks darker than it did in the afternoon, as if it has absorbed the day's shadow. You feel the coolness rise through your sandals again. It is not sharp, but it is persistent. Late autumn makes stone feel honest. Near the hearth, someone kneels to arrange the first pieces of wood. The movements are careful. Dry twigs, then small sticks, then a thicker piece laid across like a bridge. A little ash is moved aside, revealing the memory of earlier embers. If the embers are still alive, they are coaxed. If not, a spark is made. Either way, the goal is the same, to make the fire return. You stand for a moment and simply watch. The fire catches slowly, like a thought becoming clear. A tiny flame appears, then another. The room changes at once, not everywhere, but in a small, important area. The air nearest the hearth becomes softer. The cold in the stone does not disappear, but it steps back slightly, as if acknowledging a boundary. And as the first heat begins to spread only a short distance, someone says, quietly, as if reminding everyone of what they already know. They do not warm the whole building. They create small islands of warmth. You listen to the words and feel how true they are. The villa will remain cool in its far corridors and in used rooms. The stone will stay damp and stubborn in places. But here, close to the hearth, warmth is real. Touches hands. Touches cheeks. It makes the air feel kinder. You step closer, not too close, and you hold your palms out toward the new flame. The heat is gentle at first. It is not a blazing heat. It is a patient heat, and you let yourself be patient too. You breathe slowly. You listen to the soft crackle of the kindling. You feel the day finishing, like a cloth being folded. Outside, the sky continues to darken. Inside, the villa makes its first small answer to the cold, damp stone. It is only an island, and for tonight an island is enough. You begin to notice the cold not as a sudden thing, but as a quiet presence that has been there all along. It rests inside the walls, inside the floors, inside the columns that hold the roof steady. During the day, the sun touched these stones and warmed them a little, but now, in late autumn evening, the stones begin to give that warmth back very slowly, and when they do, there is not enough left to keep everything gentle. You walk across the room at an unhurried pace, and with each step, you feel the truth of it. The stone beneath your sandals is firm, reliable, and cool. It simply reminds you, again and again, that the building is older than this evening, older than this season, and that it follows its own rules. Stone keeps what it is given. Old records mention repairs to floors, added mats, extra wooden platforms, and changes to sleeping arrangements as the seasons turned. These are small notes in long accounts, but they tell a quiet story. People notice the cold in the stone, and they learn to live with it rather than fight it. You pause near a wall and rest your fingertips against it. The plaster feels dry, but beneath it there is a faint chill. You do not pull your hand away quickly. There is no need. You are only noticing. In this house, noticing is the first step to comfort. A servant passes by carrying a bundle of reed mats. The reeds are tightly bound, their ends trimmed short. When he sets them down near a doorway, they make a soft sound against the floor. These mats will not heat the room, but they will keep bare feet from touching cold stone directly, and that matters more than it seems. Comfort often begins at the smallest point of contact. You see another person, older, moving more slowly, adjusting a wooden bench so that it stands closer to the wall and farther from a draft. The bench has been used for years. Its legs are worn smooth where they meet the floor. When the bench is moved, the stone beneath it is darker, colder, as if it has been hidden from warmth for a long time. The older person notices this too and gives a small nod, acknowledging it without complaint. The villa's corridors stretch away into dimness now. During the day, they felt open and cool in a pleasant way. Now they feel different. The air settles lower, and sound does not travel as easily. Each footstep is absorbed by the stone and the thick walls. You walk through one corridor and feel the temperature change almost imperceptibly. The farther you go from the hearth area, the cooler it becomes. In one of the side rooms, you see the signs of preparation. Extra cloth has been hung over a narrow window opening, layered carefully so that the fabric overlaps. The cloth is plain, perhaps linen backed with wool. It hangs straight and heavy, blocking the thin breath of wind that would otherwise slip inside. Someone has weighted the bottom edge with a simple tie so it does not move. You kneel briefly to adjust the edge of a mat that has curled slightly. Your fingers brush the stone beneath, and you feel the damp coolness there. You smooth the mat flat again and stand, knowing that this small action will make the night gentler for whoever steps there later, half awake, half asleep. Near the main room, the difference is clear. The hearth has been burning long enough now that a small circle of warmth has formed. You step into it and feel the change at once. Your hands, your face, even your breath feel softer. The stone floor is still cool, but not as insistent here. The warmth does not travel far. It stays close to the fire, loyal and contained. Someone speaks quietly, not as an announcement, but as a shared understanding. The villa is an archipelago now, warmth here, coolness there, comfort gathered in certain places and absent in others. And that is all right. No one expects the stone corridors to feel like summer. Instead, people move themselves. A stool is brought closer to the hearth. A basket of wool is set where hands can reach it easily. A child is guided away from the colder edge of the room and nearer to the center, where the air is kinder. You sit for a moment on a low bench and let your feet rest on the reed mat. The mat does not warm the stone beneath it, but it keeps the cold from. You return again to the hearth because everyone does. Even without thinking about it, your steps follow the same gentle path as the others. In a stone house, the hearth is not only a place. It is a feeling. It is where the air changes, where shoulders loosen, where breath becomes slower without being told to slow. The fire has settled now. It is no longer struggling to begin. It has found its balance. The wood rests into itself, glowing at the edges, and the flames rise and fall in an unhurried rhythm. You hear the soft crackle, the quiet shift as a piece of wood adjusts its place. These sounds are not loud enough to demand attention, but they are steady enough to offer comfort. You stand close enough to feel the warmth on your face. It is not a wide warmth. It does not reach your back or your feet. It touches only what you offer to it. Your hands extend, palms open, and the heat meets them halfway. You feel it soak into your skin, into the small joints of your fingers that have begun to stiffen from the cool air elsewhere in the villa. Someone nearby sets down a small pot near the edge of the hearth. It is not placed directly in the flames, only close enough to take advantage of the warmth. Inside is water, perhaps mixed with herbs, perhaps plain. The goal is simple, to keep it from growing cold, to make it kind to the hands later. In the evening, water is used often, washed from fingers, from faces, from small tools, and cold water makes these tasks less pleasant than they need to be. A low stool is drawn closer to the fire. Its legs scrape softly against the stone. Someone sits, not facing the flames directly, but turns slightly to one side, so that the warmth touches shoulder and cheek without drying the skin too much. These small adjustments are learned over time. Fire is generous, but it must be met with understanding. You notice how the hearth gathers people without forcing them together. There is space between bodies, but not distance. A child sits cross-legged on a folded cloth, watching the flames with quiet focus. An older woman mends a tear in a wool garment, her needle catching the light now and then. A man leans against the wall nearby, close enough to feel warmth on one side, cool stone on the other, his posture relaxed, unguarded. Some historians suggest that the hearth was the true center of domestic life in Roman households, more important in daily practice than formal rooms meant for guests. Old writings mention cooking fires, warming fires, ritual fires, and the careful tending of embers overnight. Fire was not dramatic. It was dependable. It asked for attention, and in return it made life possible. The smoke rises slowly, guided by the shape of the hearth and the vent above. It does not fill the room. It lingers just enough to scent the air. You breathe it in without effort. The smell is familiar. Wood, ash, warmth. It mixes with the scent of wool, of bread waiting nearby, of oil lamps beginning to glow along the walls. Someone adjusts the wood with a long iron tool. Sparks lift briefly and then disappear. No one startles. These small flashes are expected. The tool is placed back against the wall, where it will not be stepped on in the dim light. Order is part of comfort. Knowing where things belong makes the night smoother. You shift your weight and notice how your body responds. Your shoulders drop a little. Your jaw relaxes. The hearth does not command attention, but it invites rest. The flickering light softens faces, blurs sharp lines, makes everything feel slower. Even time seems to change here, stretching gently, no longer pushing forward. Someone speaks softly, almost to themselves, but the words are heard. They do not warm the whole building. They create small islands of warmth. You have heard this already tonight, and hearing it again does not make it dull. It makes it deeper. The hearth is the clearest island of all. Around it, the villa organizes itself. Work slows here. Voices lower here. Movements become more careful, more intentional. You watch as someone brings a folded blanket closer and drapes it over their shoulders. The blanket does not make the room warmer. It makes the person warmer. This distinction is understood by everyone. Warmth is personal. It must be gathered and kept. The firelight reaches only so far. Beyond its edge, the room fades into shadow. You can still see the outlines of furniture, the curve of a doorway, the darker shape of a storage chest. But details soften. This is a kindness. In the evening, the mind does not need sharp edges. You sit down at last, close enough to the hearth that you feel the warmth on your knees. Your feet rest on a mat. The stone beneath remains cool, but the mat interrupts the cold, slow climb. This combination, fire above, mat below, creates another small island, a layered one, shaped exactly for this moment. You breathe in. You breathe out. The fire breathes with you in its own way. The villa does not become warm everywhere. The corridors remain cool. The far rooms remain damp and quiet. The stone remains stone. But here, at the hearth, there is balance. The heart of the home beats softly, steadily, and you let yourself rest within its rhythm, knowing that for tonight, this small island of warmth is enough. Food in the evening is never hurried. It does not need to impress anyone. It only needs to warm the body and settle the mind. As the fire steadies, attention turns naturally to the simple meal that will close the day. You notice how hands begin to move more slowly now, as if the rhythm of the hearth has reached them. A pot is brought closer to the fire, not into the strongest heat, but to a place where warmth gathers gently. Inside, something plain simmers, perhaps lentils softened over time, perhaps barley with a little oil and herbs. There is no sharp smell, no strong spice. The scent is mild and steady, rising and falling with the steam. It smells like nourishment rather than desire. You sit nearby and watch the surface of the food change. Small bubbles appear, break, and disappear. Someone stirs with a wooden spoon, scraping the bottom carefully so nothing sticks. The sound is soft and circular, repeating itself without demanding attention. Stirring is not only for cooking. On a low table, bread has been laid out. The loaves are simple, round or oval, their crusts firm but not hard. You touch one lightly and feel the faint warmth left from baking earlier in the day. Bread keeps memory well. Even when the room cools, it holds on to what it was given. Someone breaks a loaf open with practiced hands. The sound is quiet, a gentle tear rather than a crack. Steam escapes briefly and then fades. A small dish of oil is set beside the bread. Another holds olives, dark and glossy, preserved carefully weeks before. There may be cheese as well, firm and pale, cut into modest pieces. No one piles food high. Portions are sensible, calm. Evening meals are meant to comfort, not to weigh the body down. Some historians suggest that Roman evening meals, especially outside the cities, were often like this, simple, repetitive, familiar. Old records mention grain, oil, legumes, and bread again and again. These foods appear so often that they almost disappear from the writing, becoming assumed, expected. Their importance lies not in novelty, but in reliability. You are given a bowl. It is pottery, thick and slightly uneven, warmed by the fire before being handed to you. When you take it, the warmth spreads into your palms. This is one of the small kindnesses of the evening. Cold bowls make food less comforting. Warm bowls create another small island of warmth, held carefully in the hands. You eat slowly. Everyone does. There is no reason to rush. Chewing becomes part of the quiet rhythm of the room. The fire crackles. The pot is stirred again. Someone pours a little more water into a cup, careful not to spill. Voices remain low, drifting in and out without urgency. You notice how people position themselves while they eat. No one sits far from the hearth now. Those who must stand shift their weight often, keeping the cold from settling too deeply into their feet. Someone drapes a fold of wool across their knees. Someone else pulls their stool closer by a few inches, testing the edge of the warmth until it feels right. The bread, when you break it and hold it briefly, is another. Even the act of eating itself creates warmth from within. These are layers working together quietly. As you finish, you notice how the food leaves you neither heavy nor restless. It settles gently, like a stone placed carefully in water. The mind slows. The body feels more prepared for stillness. Someone wipes the inside of a bowl with a piece of bread, leaving it nearly clean. Another sets used dishes aside, stacking them neatly so they will not clutter the space. There is no sudden ending to the meal. It fades the way evening fades, slowly with small movements and pauses. Hands are wiped on cloths. A cup is rinsed in warmed water. The pot is moved away from the strongest heat, its contents finished for the night. You lean back slightly and let the warmth from the hearth reach you again. Food has done its work. The cold in the stone has not disappeared, but it feels less important now. Inside you, warmth has gathered, joining the warmth of the fire, the wool, the shared space. The villa remains quiet. Outside, the night deepens. Inside, the household has answered the evening once more. Not with force, not with excess, but with simple food and slow hands. After the food is finished, the evening does not move on quickly. Water appears next. Not in a rush, not with splashing or noise, but quietly, carried in bowls and pitchers warmed just enough by the hearth to take away the sharpness of the cold. You notice the difference at once when you place your hands into the bowl. The water is not hot. It does not steam. Someone nearby has taken the time to set the bowl close to the fire first, letting it gather a little warmth. This, too, is one of the evening's small answers. You wash slowly, fingers first, then palms, then wrists. The day leaves you in thin layers: dust, oil, flour, ash, and the water lifts them away without effort. The bowl rests steady on a low stool. The stool stands on a mat. Each layer supports the next. Nothing is accidental. A cloth is offered to you. It is linen worn soft from use. You dry your hands carefully, taking your time. There is no reason to hurry. The night is long. As you fold the cloth and set it aside, you feel the warmth from the fire reach your knuckles again, sealing in the comfort. Around you, the room begins to change shape, but in purpose. The meal has ended. Now the space prepares for rest. Bowls are stacked neatly, not left where they might be kicked in the dim light. A pitcher is refilled and placed where it will be easy to find later, even half asleep. Someone wipes the table with slow, even strokes, gathering crumbs and leaving the wood clean and ready for morning. The sounds are gentle. Water poured from one vessel to another. A cloth brushing stone. A wooden bowl set carefully atop another. These sounds blend with the steady breathing of the fire. Households placed great importance on evening order, not for appearance. Old household accounts mention oil, cloths, and cleaning tools alongside food and fuel. Tidying was not separate from living. It was part of how the night became safe. You help where you can. You lift a bowl and carry it a short distance, careful not to spill the last drops of water clinging to its rim. The pottery feels cool again now, the warmth fading as it leaves the hearth's reach. You are aware of this, and you move a little faster, just enough to keep your hands comfortable. Someone sweeps the floor near the hearth, drawing ash and dust into a small pile. The broom's bristles whisper against stone. The stone itself remains cool and steady, unchanged by these small acts. But the space above it feels calmer, clearer. Once more, the truth of the evening is spoken, quietly, as if it belongs to the work itself. The bowl of water was one of those islands. The cloth, warmed briefly by hands and fire, was another. Even the act of tidying, of moving gently, keeps the body warm in its own way. Stillness comes later. For now, motion is slow and helpful. As the tidying finishes, the room grows simpler. Fewer objects, clearer paths, shadows that fall where they always fall. The oil lamps burn steadily, their light reflecting faintly on clean surfaces. You can already sense the next phase of the night approaching, not as an event, but as a gradual turning inward. You stand for a moment and listen. The villa settles around you. In distant rooms, doors are closed softly. In nearer ones, benches are moved into place. The water bowls are set aside, ready for morning. Everything has a place, and everything is in it. You feel clean now, not only your hands but your thoughts. The day has been washed away in small, careful motions. The cold in the stone remains patient and quiet, but it no longer feels important. The hearth continues to glow. The islands of warmth hold. As the room grows quieter, attention turns to clothing, not as something decorative, but as another careful layer between the body and the cool air. In late autumn, clothing is not chosen once in the morning and forgotten. It is adjusted slowly through the day, and again in the evening, responding to the stone, the fire, and the stillness of night. You reach for your cloak where it hangs near the wall. It is wool, thick and slightly rough at first touch, but softened by years of use. When you lift it, it feels heavier than it did in summer. Wool always seems to gain weight as the weather cools, as if it understands what is being asked of it. You drape it around your shoulders and feel the warmth begin to gather, held close rather than lost to the air. Nearby, others do the same. A tunic sleeve is pulled down over the wrist. A belt is loosened slightly to make sitting more comfortable. Someone adds a second layer, a vest or a short cloak, over the first, careful to arrange it so it does not pull or bunch. These movements are small, thoughtful, and familiar. No one rushes. No one struggles. The body knows what it needs. Clothing was far more adaptable than we often imagine. Old writings mention layered garments, extra wraps, and the careful storage of heavier cloth for colder months. Clothing was not fashion first. It was protection, comfort, and practicality, shaped by weather and routine. You notice how people sit differently once they are properly wrapped. Shoulders relax. Hands rest more easily in laps instead of being tucked away. Feet shift less often. The cold does not disappear, but it slows, blocked by wool and linen and thoughtful arrangement. A woman near the hearth folds a spare cloak and sets it on a bench. It is placed there not for anyone in particular, but for whoever might need it later. This is how the household works. Needs are anticipated quietly. Warmth is shared without being discussed. You touch the fabric again, rubbing it gently between your fingers. The wool is dry, carrying the faint scent of smoke and clean air. It reminds you of sheep in distant fields, of careful shearing, of hands that spun and wove long before this evening. Clothing carries many quiet histories, all of them practical. As the firelight flickers, you notice how cloth responds to it. Wool absorbs the light, making shadows softer. Linen reflects it faintly, giving a dull glow. The room feels calmer with these textures present, less sharp, less exposed. Someone adjusts the cloth curtain near the doorway again, pulling it closer so it overlaps just a little more. The movement blocks another thin draft. The air settles. This, too, is part of clothing not worn on the body but worn by the room itself. Once again, the familiar understanding moves through the space, spoken softly, almost as a reassurance. The extra tunic is another. The folded wool waiting on the bench is a promise of one more. Together, they make the evening livable, even pleasant. You sit back and let the layers do their work. The fire warms one side of you. The wool keeps that warmth from escaping too quickly. The stone floor remains cool, steady and honest, but it feels farther away now, less insistent. You breathe slowly. You feel protected. Clothing does not trap you, supports you. It allows you to remain still without discomfort, to rest without distraction. Around you, the villa continues its quiet transformation. The day's activity has faded. The night's rituals are settling into place. Cloth, fire, stone, and breath find their balance. And wrapped in simple, everyday clothing, you remain within your small island of warmth, ready for the night to continue unfolding at its own gentle pace. You become aware of the floor again, not because it has changed, but because everything else has softened around it. The stone remains what it has always been, solid, cool. It does not respond to the fire the way air does, and it does not respond to cloth the way skin does. When you stand, you feel it immediately through your sandals. The coolness is steady, rising gently, never sharp. It reminds you where you are. A Roman villa is not meant to float above the land. It rests on it, anchored, and the floor is the place where that connection is felt most clearly. No one walks quickly across bare stone in the evening. Steps are measured. Paths are chosen with care. Reed mats lie where feet most often pass, near the hearth, beside benches, along the way to doorways. They are not placed to cover the floor completely. That would be pointless. They are placed where they matter. You pause and place one foot fully on a mat. The difference is small but clear. The mat does not become warm. It simply interrupts the cold, delaying its climb into the body. This delay is enough. Comfort often lives in such pauses. Some historians suggest that mats, rugs, and wooden platforms were common features in Roman homes, especially in cooler seasons. Old inventories mention reeds, straw, and woven fibers alongside furniture and tools. These items were not luxuries. They were quiet necessities. Nearby, a low wooden platform has been set against the wall. It raises a chest and a stool just a little above the stone. The wood feels different underfoot, less cold, more forgiving. You step onto it briefly and feel the change travel up through your legs. Elevation matters. Even a small distance from the stone makes the air feel kinder. A child moves across the room, careful to keep to the mats, as if following an invisible path. No one has told him to do this tonight. He has learned it over many evenings. His body remembers where warmth lingers longer and where the stone feels least demanding. You sit again, this time noticing how your feet rest. You draw them back slightly, closer to the stool, closer to the hearth's reach. The fire does not warm the floor much, but it warms the air just above it, and that is enough to soften the sensation. Once more, the familiar understanding settles into the room, spoken softly, like a shared breath. The wooden platform is another. Even the simple act of sitting instead of standing changes how the cold reaches you. These are choices made without discussion, refined over time. You notice how the floor reflects light differently now. In the fire's glow, the stone looks darker, smoother, almost liquid in places. Shadows stretch gently across it, and the edges of mats and furniture blur. The floor no longer feels like a wide, exposed surface. It becomes part of the room's quiet texture. Someone sweeps once more near the edge of the hearth, not because it is necessary, but because the motion keeps warmth moving through the body. The broom whispers, then rests against the wall. The stone beneath is unchanged, but the space above it feels settled. You rest your heels on the mat and let your toes relax. The cold does not disappear, but it no longer asks for attention. Your body has learned where to place itself, how to meet the floor without discomfort. The villa remains grounded, steady, unmoving. The night deepens outside. Inside, the household continues to shape comfort not by changing the stone, but by understanding it. And with your feet supported, your body wrapped, and the fire steady nearby, you remain quietly balanced between earth and warmth, ready for the next gentle turn of the evening. When the lamps are lit, you notice this at once. Daylight is honest and direct. Lamplight is kinder. It forgives uneven walls, faded paint, and the small clutter that belongs to lived-in spaces. Someone brings a lamp closer to the hearth and sets it down with care, making sure the oil does not slosh. The flame steadies and the room exhales. You lean slightly to watch the wick glow. It is a small flame, nothing like the fire, and it behaves differently. Where the hearth crackles and shifts, the lamp is polite. It stands still, humming softly to itself. Its light pools on the table, on the edge of a bowl, on your hands. Beyond that pool, shadows gather, not threatening, just curious. You move your fingers and watch their shadows stretch and shrink along the wall. The shapes are a little distorted, longer than they should be. You smile to yourself because even in a serious stone villa, hands can still look like strange creatures at night. A child nearby notices the same thing and suppresses a laugh, glancing quickly at the adults to see if such amusement is allowed. No one objects. Quiet amusement is part of the evening too. Another lamp is lit and carried down the corridor. The flame wobbles slightly with each step, and the shadows on the walls seem to walk along, keeping pace. You notice how corners soften as the light reaches them. Places that felt cool and empty before now feel occupied, if only by light. Some historians suggest that oil lamps were used sparingly, not because people disliked light, but because they respected it. Oil mattered. Wicks mattered. Lamps were tended with care. Old records list oil alongside grain and cloth, measured and accounted for. Light, like warmth, was something you gathered in small, thoughtful amounts. You sit back and let the lamplight do its work. It does not brighten the whole room. It chooses certain objects and leaves others alone. A basket remains mostly in shadow. A wall painting shows only part of its pattern. This partial seeing is restful. The mind does not have to take everything in at once. Someone adjusts a lamp that has begun to smoke slightly. A careful pinch, a small twist of the wick, and the smoke stops. The person nods with quiet satisfaction, as if correcting a small but important disagreement. The lamp behaves again. You notice how the light changes faces. Lines soften. Expressions look calmer. Even people who spent the day thinking and planning now appear gentler, as if lamplight has reminded them that thinking can wait until morning. A man shifts his stool closer to the light and holds his hands out, not for warmth this time, but to see better as he checks a small tear in his sleeve. He squints, then chuckles quietly when the shadow makes the tear look much worse than it is. Lamps, he mutters softly, always exaggerate. No one disagrees. You look down at your own hands, illuminated just enough to be familiar. They look capable, slightly tired, entirely real. The light does not flatter them, but it does not judge either. It simply shows them as they are, and that feels comforting. As more lamps settle into place, the villa grows quieter. Shadows stop moving and take their places. The air seems stiller. You realize that this is one of the signals your body recognizes. Lamps mean evening has truly arrived. Work has slowed. Night has permission to unfold. You breathe slowly and let your eyes relax. The lamplight does not demand focus. It allows it. You could watch the flame, or you could let it blur slightly and rest. Both feel acceptable. The stone walls remain patient and cool. The fire continues its steady work. The lamps add their gentle glow, and together they make the space feel complete. Not bright, not warm everywhere, but human. And as you sit there, watching shadows behave themselves at last, you feel the day loosen its grip, one soft pool of light at a time. As the lamps find their places and the room settles into its evening shape, the household turns to the small routines that never appear in grand histories but happen every night all the same. These are the actions that tell the body it is safe to slow down. You notice them not because they are announced, but because they repeat, night after night, with comforting sameness. Someone checks the doors first. Just a hand on the wood, a gentle push to be sure it is seated well in its frame. A wooden bar is set in place where it belongs. It makes a solid, familiar sound. In another corner, a servant counts the lamps. Not out loud, just with a glance. 1, 2, 3. Enough. No one wants to wake in the middle of the night to find a lamp guttering uselessly. Oil is precious, but so is not walking into furniture in the dark. Experience has found a balance between the two. You notice someone gently shaking out a cloth and laying it over a jug of water. This keeps dust out overnight. It also keeps small insects from making ambitious mistakes. The cloth is adjusted twice because the first time it sits slightly crooked, and crooked things have a way of becoming irritating at inconvenient hours. Some historians suggest that Roman domestic routine relied heavily on repetition rather than instruction. Children learned by watching. Adults refined habits by noticing what worked. Old household manuals mention timing, when to shut shutters, when to bank fires, when to rest animals without drama, as if these things were as natural as breathing. You hear quiet footsteps in the courtyard as someone checks on the animals. A murmur follows, calm and reassuring. The animals answer with their own sounds, satisfied. A door closes again, gently, and the courtyard returns to stillness. Back inside, a small basket of kindling is moved closer to the hearth, just in case. No one expects to need it urgently. It is placed there because mornings can be cold, and cold hands are clumsy. Evening preparation is often actually preparation for dawn. You watch as someone folds clothing that was worn earlier and places it where it can be reached easily tomorrow. Not hidden away, not left in a heap, simply ready. There is a quiet logic to this. Morning is easier when evening has been kind. A man sits on a bench and rubs his knees slowly, listening to the soft sounds of the house, the crackle of the fire, the faint drip of water settling in pipes or channels, the distant, polite cough of someone trying not to disturb the calm. He smiles faintly and says, almost to himself, "The house is talking again." No one laughs out loud, but the corners of mouths lift. Everyone understands what he means. You listen too. The villa does speak in its way. Wood contracts. Stone cools. The roof gives a small sigh as the air changes. These sounds are not warnings. They are conversations the building has with itself every night. Once you know them, they are reassuring. A broom is leaned against the wall in exactly the same place it was last night. A cup is turned upside down so it can dry. A bench is nudged a finger's width to the left because someone remembers catching their toe on it once, long ago, and sees no reason to repeat the experience. There is a brief, quiet moment of humor when a lamp is set down and immediately moved again because it casts an unflattering shadow on a familiar wall mark that everyone pretends is not shaped like a face. The lamp is shifted. The face disappears. Peace is restored. You feel the rhythm of the routine settle into your own breathing. These actions do not excite the mind. They smooth it. They reduce the number of decisions left to make. Each completed task is like setting down a small weight you did not realize you were carrying. At last, there is very little left to do. The house knows this moment. The people know it too. The routines have done their work. The villa has been checked, adjusted, reassured. You sit quietly and listen one more time. The sounds are fewer now, softer, more predictable. And in that predictability, in the gentle, slightly imperfect routine of another Roman evening, you feel the night open wide, calm and untroubled, ready to hold everyone until morning. Preparing the sleeping space takes more time than one might expect, but no one feels that the time is wasted. In fact, this is one of the most deliberate parts of the evening. Each object is handled as if it has a memory because many of them do. You step into the sleeping room again, and the air greets you with a deeper stillness. Unlike the main room, this space has been quiet for hours. The stone walls feel cooler here, holding the calm of the day like water held in a deep jar. The room smells faintly of wood, wool, and clean dust, an honest scent that belongs to places meant for rest. The bed frame waits patiently. It is made of wood, joined carefully, raised just enough to keep the sleeper away from the coldest breath of the floor. This design is not accidental. Some historians suggest that Romans quickly learned that sleeping directly on stone invited aches, chills, and restless nights. Even a low wooden frame made a noticeable difference, and so beds were lifted whenever possible. You run your hand along the frame, checking for rough spots. A splinter at night is an unnecessary enemy. Finding none, you nod quietly and help lay the mattress in place. It is heavier than it looks, stuffed tightly with straw or wool, replaced or refreshed when it grows too flat. As it settles, it makes a soft sighing sound, as if relieved to finally be where it belongs. You smooth the surface with both hands. The action is repetitive and calming. Press, slide, adjust. The mattress remembers the shape of past nights, but it accepts this one just as willingly. Some families mark mattresses or rotate them carefully, believing, perhaps correctly, that even straw sleeps better when treated with respect. Next come the blankets. Wool first. Always wool first. Linen is useful, but wool is loyal in the cold. You shake it gently before laying it down, and the air fills briefly with the scent of sheep, smoke, and long storage. It settles heavily, its weight reassuring rather than burdensome. Another blanket follows, thinner, placed where it can be pulled higher later if the night grows colder than expected. You pause, considering the arrangement. Too many blankets trap heat uncomfortably. Too few invite wakefulness. Experience guides your hands more than thought. You tuck one edge carefully, leave another loose. This way, feet can be covered without imprisoning the rest of the body. Someone nearby watches and nods approvingly. This is shared knowledge. A bed curtain is tested next. You draw it partly closed and then open it again. The fabric falls straight, heavy and obedient. Curtains like these were common in Roman sleeping spaces, especially in cooler months. Old records mention them often, not for privacy, but for warmth. They create a smaller world inside the larger room, holding breath and heat close. You imagine the night later, when the curtain will be fully drawn, and the space inside will feel separate, quieter, almost like a room within a room. This thought brings a small sense of comfort even now. Near the bed, a low chest is opened and closed once, just to be sure it does not creak loudly. Inside are a few personal items. Spare cloth, perhaps a comb, maybe a small token or amulet worn smooth with years of handling. Nothing shiny, nothing fragile. Things meant to be reached for in the half-light without worry. You set a lamp nearby, checking the oil level carefully. Enough for a short time, not enough to waste. Some households extinguish lamps before sleep entirely. Others keep one low flame burning behind a curtain, just in case. Tonight, the decision is made quietly. The lamp will be there if needed, and darkness will do the rest. Sandals are placed beside the bed, toes outward, straps loosened. This small ritual is taken seriously. Many a night has been disturbed by sandals placed carelessly, refusing to cooperate when feet search for them before dawn. You smile faintly at the thought. Even leather has a personality, it seems. You notice the position of the bed again. Not against the wall. Never fully against the wall in autumn. Walls breathe cold. A small space is left, just enough for air to move without pressing itself directly against the sleeper. Someone long ago learned this lesson, and the memory remains in the placement. You step back once more and take in the room. Nothing shines. Nothing draws attention. The space feels ready in a quiet, serious way, like a tool laid out properly before use. The stone walls remain cool, unchanged, but now they feel less important. The bed has claimed its purpose. A faint sound comes from the main room, the fire settling, a piece of wood shifting. It reminds you that warmth is nearby, even if it does not reach this far directly. The knowledge alone is comforting. You feel your body respond to the preparation. Shoulders lower. Breath deepens. There is a particular kind of tiredness that comes only after things have been made ready. It is not exhaustion. It is permission. The lamp flame flickers gently, then steadies again. The curtain waits. The blankets hold their shape. And standing there, in the calm order of a Roman sleeping room prepared with care, you feel certain of one thing. When you lie down later, the night will know exactly what to do with you. Now that the sleeping space itself has been prepared, attention turns to the bedding in a more thoughtful way. This is not repetition. This is refinement. Bedding is not simply placed and forgotten. It is negotiated with, adjusted, respected. Wool, especially, remembers how it was treated. You sit on the edge of the bed and feel how the mattress responds. It yields just enough, then holds you. Not soft in a careless way, not hard in a punishing way. Somewhere between. You shift your weight slightly, listening for any complaint from the frame. There is none. This is good. A bed that speaks at night has opinions, and opinions are not welcome when sleep is expected. You lift the first blanket and shake it gently again. This time, a little humor slips into the moment. The blanket seems heavier than it was earlier, as if it has quietly absorbed the seriousness of the night. You smile to yourself because everyone knows this feeling. Blankets gain weight after sunset. It is one of their habits. You lay it down carefully, smoothing it with both hands. Wool behaves best when it is persuaded rather than forced. You tuck one corner, leave the other loose. This creates options for later. Feet can be covered. Shoulders can remain free. Blankets that allow choice are kinder than blankets that insist. Some historians suggest that Roman bedding varied widely depending on region and wealth, but wool appears again and again in records. Wool blankets, wool-filled mattresses, wool coverings. Linen alone was rarely enough in colder months. Old accounts mention extra layers added as winter approached, sometimes so many that sleepers joked about feeling like bundled goods ready for storage. The joke survived because the warmth did. You add a second layer, thinner than the first. This one is easier to move, easier to adjust in the night. It is placed so it can be pulled up without disturbing the heavier blanket beneath. This arrangement is intentional. No one enjoys waking fully just to wrestle fabric. You pause and test the layers with your hands, pressing down gently, then sliding your fingers between them. The space between layers matters. Air held still is warmth's quiet ally. You nod, satisfied. Nearby, someone else is doing the same, and there is a brief, shared look of understanding. No words are needed. Everyone here has spent at least one night either too cold or too trapped, and no one is eager to repeat the lesson. A small folded cloth is placed near the head of the bed. It can be used to wrap around the neck if the air grows cooler, or tucked under the pillow or ignored entirely. Its presence alone is comforting. Options are comforting. You notice how the bed feels different now compared to earlier. It no longer looks like furniture. The stone walls recede in importance. The bed claims the center of attention, not loudly, but confidently. There is a quiet moment of humor when someone pats the bedding, pauses, then pats it again, as if expecting it to respond. Just checking, they murmur softly. The bed does not answer, which is the best possible outcome. You sit back slightly and imagine the night ahead, turning once or twice, pulling the blanket higher, letting it fall back again. These movements are familiar, almost rehearsed. Bedding is not meant to trap the body. It is meant to follow it gently. The lamp nearby flickers, then steadies. Shadows lie softly across the layered wool, making it look even deeper, more generous. You feel a small sense of gratitude, not dramatic, not spoken aloud, for the care that went into this simple arrangement. You rise and step back one last time. The bed waits patiently. It does not rush you. It does not demand immediate use. It knows that sleep arrives best when it is invited rather than chased. And with the bedding layered carefully, thoughtfully, and just a little humorously, the night feels less like something to endure and more like something prepared. One quiet layer at a time. Now attention turns to the curtains, those quiet helpers that do their work without being noticed, until the night reminds everyone why they matter. You stand near the bed and reach for the fabric, feeling its weight before you move it. It is heavier than it looks, woven to hang straight and still. Curtains like this are not decoration. They are strategy. You draw them partway first. Always partway. Pulling them fully closed too soon feels impatient, and impatience has no place in the evening. The fabric slides with a soft sound and settles, creating a sheltered space that already feels calmer. The air inside seems to pause, as if considering whether to move or stay. You test a corner of the room next. Corners are interesting places at night. During the day, they are ignored. In the evening, they reveal their character. Some hold drafts. Some collect warmth. Some do both, depending on mood. You step into one corner and feel the air with your face. Cooler. You nod and step out again. That corner will be left alone tonight. Another corner, closer to the bed and farther from the wall, feels different. The air is still. It has been protected all evening by furniture and fabric. This is a good corner. You place a folded cloth there, just in case someone decides later that the spot deserves to be claimed. Corners appreciate being chosen. Some historians suggest that Romans were surprisingly attentive to airflow inside their homes. Old architectural notes mention room orientation, wall thickness, and the use of hangings to guide air rather than block it completely. Comfort was not about sealing everything tight. It was about encouraging the air to behave. You adjust the curtain again, closing it a little more. The space around the bed now feels smaller, but not cramped. Feels intentional. A room within a room. The stone walls are still there, of course, but they have been politely asked to keep their distance. A quiet moment of humor arrives when someone else pulls a curtain too far and then steps back, realizing they have made the bed disappear entirely. There is a pause, a soft laugh, and the curtain is pulled back just enough. Beds, the person murmurs, should be found without effort. This is agreed upon silently. You notice how sound changes once curtains are in place. The fire seems farther away. Voices from the main room soften. Even your own movements sound less important. Fabric absorbs more than drafts. It absorbs urgency. A small gap is left near the bottom of the curtain. This is deliberate. Air needs a path even at night. Completely sealed spaces grow stuffy, and stuffiness wakes sleepers as surely as cold does. Balance, again, is everything. You sit briefly on the edge of the bed and notice the effect immediately. The air around your shoulders feels steadier. Your breath slows without instruction. The curtain does not warm you directly, but it helps the warmth you already have stay where it belongs. Someone nearby tests another sleeping space in the same way, opening and closing curtains with thoughtful pauses in between. There is no hurry. The night will wait. Curtains do not like to be rushed anyway. They have a way of tangling themselves when treated without respect. You stand again and look around the room. Each bed now has its own character. One is tucked deeply into fabric, sheltered and still. Another remains more open, trusting layers of wool instead. No one comments. Different bodies sleep differently. The villa understands this. A corner stool is nudged slightly closer to a curtain, creating a small pocket of still air where clothing can be placed overnight without growing too cold. This earns a quiet nod of approval from someone who has learned the hard way what cold clothing feels like at dawn. At last, the adjustments stop. Not because perfection has been achieved, but because nothing more is needed. The curtains hang quietly. The corners have been chosen or politely ignored. The room has accepted its nighttime form. You take one last breath and feel how the space holds you. Not tightly, not loosely, just enough. And with curtains drawn, corners settled, and warmth hidden carefully where it will last longest, the night feels prepared to do its quiet work, leaving you nothing to solve, nothing to fix, only to rest when you are ready. When the large preparations are finished, the smallest ones begin. These are the tricks that are rarely written down, the ones passed quietly from person to person, learned through evenings that were a little too cold or nights that took too long to become comfortable. You notice them happening almost without comment, as if the house itself is suggesting them. Someone places a flat stone near the edge of the hearth. Not in the fire, never in the fire, only close enough to absorb warmth slowly. It sits there patiently while the evening continues. Later, it will be wrapped in cloth and carried to a bed, placed near feet or against a chilled side. It will not stay warm all night, but it does not need to. It only needs to soften the first stretch of darkness. Stones are very good at first efforts. Nearby, a cloth is draped over a wooden peg close to the fire. Not too close, just enough. This cloth will be warm when someone needs to wipe their face or wrap their hands for a moment. Everyone pretends this is accidental. Everyone knows it is not. Some historians suggest that Romans were fond of such quiet ingenuity. Old texts mention warmed objects, layered fabrics, and careful positioning near heat sources. There are no grand inventions in these records, only lists of things moved closer, lifted higher, or wrapped more thoughtfully. Comfort, it seems, was achieved through attention rather than innovation. You notice someone rolling a small bundle of wool and tucking it along the edge of a bed frame where a draft tends to sneak in. The movement is precise, practiced. The draft has tried this before. It has been stopped before. The relationship is well established. A small smile passes through the room when a man rubs his hands together, reaches for what he believes is a warmed cloth, and discovers it is only mildly warm. He pauses, considers this, and then nods as if mildly warm is perfectly acceptable. Expectations are adjusted. Peace is maintained. Another person folds a spare blanket not into a square, but into a long, narrow shape. This makes it easier to pull over shoulders without waking fully later. Someone else notices and copies the method. No words are exchanged. Knowledge spreads quietly. You try one of these tricks yourself, tucking a folded cloth under the edge of the mattress where cold air tends to collect. The mattress settles differently afterward, as if approving of the addition. You tell yourself this is imagination, but you do it again the next night anyway. A moment of gentle humor appears when someone sets a warmed stone down, forgets it briefly, then sits too close to it. There is no panic, only a surprise sound and a quick adjustment. "Ambitious stone," they murmur softly. The stone says nothing and continues cooling at its own pace. You notice how these small actions change the room. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the air feels less restless. The night seems less curious. Even the cold appears to lose interest, finding fewer openings to explore. Someone checks the fire one last time, adjusting the wood so it will burn steadily without flaring. A small ridge of ash is shaped carefully. This too is a trick. Fire that is allowed to behave calmly through the night is less likely to wake anyone with smoke or noise. The fire is encouraged to sleep as well. You test the bed again, sitting, shifting, then standing. Each time feels better than the last. The combination of layers, curtains, and these quiet tricks has created a space that feels considered, thoughtful, ready. A person nearby murmurs, half to themselves, "It's always the little things." No one disagrees. The little things have been very busy this evening. You take a final look around. Nothing new is happening now. That is the sign. When comfort is achieved, movement slows. Adjustments stop. The room holds its shape. You breathe in. You breathe out. Your body recognizes that nothing else is required of it tonight. And surrounded by small tricks, gentle habits, and the accumulated wisdom of many quiet evenings, you feel the night loosen its grip, no longer something to manage, but something that will carry you, patiently, towards sleep. Once everything has been adjusted, placed, and gently argued with into agreement, the villa begins to sound different. This is how you know the night has truly arrived. Not because it is dark, darkness came earlier, but because the house has changed its voice. You lie down at last or sit with your back against the bed frame for a moment, and you listen. At first, there seem to be many sounds. Then, slowly, they arrange themselves into something simpler. The fire speaks first. Not loudly, just a soft, steady murmur. A piece of wood shifts and settles. A coal collapses inward with a faint sigh. These sounds are not interruptions. They are reassurances. The fire is still there. It is behaving. From somewhere deeper in the villa, you hear the building itself respond to the cooling night. A beam tightens slightly. Stone contracts with a sound so soft it almost feels imagined. This happens every night, and every night someone notices it for a moment and then forgets again. The villa has always made these sounds. It will make them long after tonight. You adjust your position, pulling the blanket a little higher. The wool responds with a muted rustle, like something settling into place. You exhale slowly and feel the fabric rise and fall with your breath. This movement is small, but it matters. It gives the body something steady to follow. Some historians suggest that people in the ancient world were far more attuned to the sounds of their homes than we often imagine. Without constant noise, without machines, night sounds were clearer. Not louder, just clearer. Old writings mention listening to wind in courtyards, animals shifting, water channels murmuring. These sounds were not feared. They were counted, recognized, and trusted. You hear a distant cough from another sleeping space, quickly stifled, followed by an embarrassed pause. Someone whispers a soft apology to no one in particular. No one answers. No one needs to. The sound fades, and the night accepts it without comment. Outside, something moves. Perhaps a small animal passing along the wall. Perhaps only leaves stirred by a late breath of wind. You register the sound, decide it is unimportant, and let it go. This decision feels practiced. Your mind does not linger. You become aware of breathing around you. Not clearly enough to identify individuals. Just the general rhythm of others settling into rest. A slow inhale. A longer exhale. Somewhere, someone snores very lightly, pauses, then adjusts position as if embarrassed even in sleep. You smile faintly and pull the blanket closer to your chin. Your own breathing begins to change. You do not force it. The body does this on its own when given permission. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The air feels cool but not sharp. Each breath feels complete. The curtains around the bed absorb sound as well as drafts. The world feels slightly farther away now, as if wrapped in cloth. You notice how even your thoughts sound quieter inside this space. They arrive more slowly. They leave without protest. A final small sound comes from the hearth. A gentle settling that marks the fire preparing to rest. It does not go out. It simply lowers its voice. This feels important, though you could not say why. You shift one last time, finding a position where shoulders, hips, and feet all agree. This agreement is rare and should be respected. You do not test it again. Breathing becomes the most noticeable thing now. The blanket moves. Stillness returns. You feel the day loosen its hold completely. The villa continues to exist around you. Stone, wood, cloth, fire. But none of it asks for attention anymore. It is doing its work quietly. And listening to the night sounds soften. Listening to breathing slow and deepen. You find yourself floating gently between waking and sleep, carried not by silence, but by the calm, familiar music of a house at rest. Even though the bed is ready and sleep is already nearby, there is often one last thing to do before resting completely. A slow walk, not because it is necessary, but because it feels right. The body likes to confirm that everything is as it should be. The mind likes to say a quiet goodbye to the day. You rise carefully, trying not to disturb the calm you have already gathered. Your feet find the mat without effort, as if they remember where it is on their own. The air outside the curtains feels cooler, but not unpleasant. It is simply different, reminding you that the villa is larger than this one sheltered space. You take a lamp with you, or perhaps the light from the hearth is enough. Either way, you move slowly, letting your eyes adjust. The corridors are quiet now. Not empty, never empty, but resting. The stone beneath your feet feels cooler here, and you walk with measured steps, unhurried, attentive. As you pass doorways, you glance inside without entering. Sleeping spaces are now private worlds. Curtain drawn. A blanket rising and falling gently. Someone turned on their side, already half lost to dreams. You do not linger. Looking too long feels like interrupting a conversation already in progress. Some historians suggest that Romans often made such evening rounds, especially in larger households, not as inspections but as habits. Old letters mention checking lamps, listening for animals, making sure fires were safe. These walks were not about control. They were about reassurance. You pause briefly near the hearth. The fire is lower now, quieter, but steady. It gives off a soft glow that barely reaches the edges of the room. You adjust one piece of wood slightly, more out of habit than need. The fire responds by settling, as if appreciating the attention. Fires, like people, behave better when they feel noticed. A faint, almost humorous moment occurs when you think you hear something important, only to realize it is the sound of your own clothing brushing against itself in the quiet. You smile softly. The night has a way of making small things feel momentarily mysterious. In the storage area, everything is where it should be. Baskets stacked, tools resting, nothing leaning dangerously. You resist the urge to straighten one item that is only slightly imperfect. Perfection is tiring. Good enough is good enough, especially at night. You listen again. The villa answers with its familiar sounds. A distant animal shifting, a beam settling, the soft, regular breath of those already asleep. These sounds are like landmarks. You recognize them and move on. At the doorway to the courtyard, you stop. The door is closed. The bar is in place. You rest your hand on the wood for a moment, feeling its solid reassurance. Beyond it, the world continues. Fields, trees, sky, but none of it requires your attention now. You turn back slowly, retracing your steps. The walk back always feels shorter. The lamp seems heavier, or perhaps your arms are simply more relaxed. Shadows move gently along the walls, then fall back into place as you pass. When you reach your sleeping space again, it feels different than when you left it. Warmer, smaller, more personal. The curtains wait patiently, like something that has been holding your place. You step inside and let the curtain fall closed behind you. The sound is soft and final in the best possible way. The outside world stays outside. The quiet stays with you. You set the lamp down or extinguish it if that feels right. Darkness gathers, not suddenly, but carefully, like a blanket being drawn up inch by inch. You return to the bed and lie down, arranging yourself with familiar movements. Everything fits the way it should. Nothing presses. Nothing pulls. The slow walk is complete. The house has been acknowledged. The day has been released. And as you settle back into stillness, you feel no need to go anywhere else. Every quiet room has been visited. Every sound has been heard. Now, there is only rest waiting patiently for you to accept it. Now there is nothing left to adjust. You lie still, and the villa seems to understand this. It does not offer new sounds or surprises. It holds its breath just enough to match yours. The stone walls remain where they have always been, steady and patient. The roof does its quiet work above. The night has found its balance. Your body settles more deeply into the bed. Not sinking, not floating, simply resting. The blankets rest with you. They no longer need to be arranged or tested. They have accepted their task. Your feet are warm enough. Your shoulders are supported. Your hands find a place they like and stay there. Breathing becomes the simplest thing in the world. In and out. The air feels cool when it enters, slightly warmer when it leaves. Each breath seems to smooth something inside you, as if the day's edges are being gently rounded off. Thoughts appear more slowly now. When they do appear, they are small and quiet, nothing that needs to be followed. Somewhere in the villa, the fire continues its low, steady presence. It does not flare. It does not fade completely. It simply remains, like a calm companion that will keep watch without asking for thanks. Lamps have been dimmed or extinguished. Shadows have chosen their final places and do not move anymore. You are aware, faintly, of the building around you, the way it holds the night, the way it has done this for countless evenings before this one. Other people have slept here in other years under other skies, listening to similar sounds. This thought is not heavy. It is comforting. It reminds you that rest is an old habit, well practiced. Your muscles loosen in small, quiet stages. Jaw, shoulders, hands, legs. Each part seems to receive permission in turn. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forgotten. The curtain near the bed hangs still. No draft finds its way in. The small pocket of air around you feels settled, complete. Even the stone, cool and honest as it is, feels distant now, no longer something you need to consider. Breathing slows again. If there is humor left in the night, it is very gentle now. A soft thought drifts by: how much effort went into preparing for this moment, and how simple the moment itself turned out to be. You do not smile. You simply let the thought pass, satisfied. The villa is quiet, but not empty. It is full of rest. Your eyes grow heavier, not suddenly, but naturally, as if they have been waiting for this signal all along. You do not need to close them. They close themselves. The night does not pull you anywhere. It supports you exactly where you are. And as breathing becomes deeper, slower, and softer still, the last awareness of the room fades. Not into darkness, but into ease. Stone, wool, wood, fire, and breath remain. You do not need to hold on to them. Sleep arrives gently, and you let it,